decision soon. Robin Widener was teaching a class outside where I parked my truck, and we're live.
Okay.
We are live.
Everybody ready? Call this meeting of the Frostburg Town and Gown Committee here March 14th, 2022 to order. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And those you want to start to...
Sure. So the first item of business at the last time this group met in November, that would have been the last meeting under the original provisions of the Town and Gown Ordinance. It had a 3-year sunset, which would have expired in February of this year. So the mayor and council reenacted the ordinance. The purpose remains the same. The composition, rules of procedure, that's just been simplified so that you, the people that are here, or their representative can just be sent to the meeting, and there's no formal appointment process and things like that. So that ordinance is available online if anybody wants it.
You ready for the?
You gentlemen are ready?
Yep, University of Construction, we'll give you updates on that. Education Health Sciences building continues to be on budget, primarily because the vendors purchased everything before COVID. The issue we run into, however, is supply chain and getting stuff delivered. And we've informed the people on campus that the building is likely to be delayed. We're hoping to be in September. It looks like now it'll be January. It's the HVAC that's slowed everything down, but other than that, it looks like we'll at least come in on budget moving forward. So that we're hoping to take occupancy in January. The Multicultural Center, which is the Lincoln School, we've started asbestos abatement on that, and we are going to then, once that's done, remove the non-load-bearing walls to see how much space we actually have in that building. But the idea behind it is to obviously create a multicultural center that would be available for not only students but also for the community, and will celebrate the many cultures in the region and in Frostburg. And it will be primarily a meeting place. There won't be a lot of space for offices. We would intend to have the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in that building, but beyond that, it will be an area pretty much highlighting the different cultures, including Brownsville in the area, and then also being a place where community and campus can get together for meetings. I'm testifying tomorrow in Annapolis to the request, the governor's request in the budget for us to get $10 million in infrastructure improvements. It's been supported by the Department of Legislative Services. So that money will be going to doing a lot of deferred maintenance on campus, roofs, HVAC equipment, utilities, electrical utility upgrades, some fiber upgrades for computers, and windows and window replacement, things we've been requesting since 2014. And so we're thankful the governor's giving us that money to make those things happen. The other is, again, thank you to the city for, we hope it's recommendation. I don't know if you finalized that vote yet on the donation of the City Hall?
It'll be Thursday.
Yeah, this Thursday. We're moving forward with having that go before the Board of Regents at the April 29th meeting. And if it's approved, then because of your donation, we will then be able to immediately start moving forward on the building, and will not have to go to the Board of Public Works. And so that, we've got $3 million from the state, as well as $1 million already has been raised, approximately $1 million in private funds. So we'll be moving forward on that. And we're still looking for some additional support if we can find it along the way for that building. I think that's the major things as far as university construction and project updates. You'll see a lot of work going on this summer when we get that $10 million, which will be available in July. A lot of them will start working on roofs and other things almost immediately.
Okay, very good.
Any questions on any of that?
All good news.
Good. University projections and plans, as you talk, I assume you're talking enrollment here. We're moving forward with the strategic enrollment management plan that the regions have asked for. We'll have that at the end of April. Right now, our acceptances are higher than they were 2 years ago, pre-COVID. Our deposits are running a bit behind where we were 2 years ago. We are doing a first week of April. We will be hosting a virtual week for students who have been admitted. And on Saturday, we're having an actual admitted student registration day, where students who want to get a head start can come in, they'll get their schedule, get their IDs, and have us, where we are. The plan, though, we'll be glad to share the strategic enrollment plan in general terms once we get it to the regions, but it's going to focus on rebuilding enrollments right now in the sciences, primarily in two areas, computer science and engineering. We've seen a decline there. Our health enrollments are up dramatically. They continue to do well. And it's not only in nursing. We do have a proposal going forward for a 4-year nursing program on campus that would be housed in a new education and health sciences building. But exercise and sports science and athletic training is showing a lot of growth. And we're seeing that as an increased number here. In fact, we're just recently negotiating with Coppin State to do what's called a 2+, it would be a 2+ or a 3+3 program. Students from Coppin State as well as Catonsville Community College are looking at sending their students here who have an AA in exercise and sports science to finish their degree here and then seamlessly go right into our athletic training program. So we're seeing a lot of interest in the wellness side of things in terms of growth also. The other area we have to rebuild is we're looking at doing some rebuilding in terms of our social science area, primarily in law and society, and also mass communications. And the mass communications faculty are talking about they've already reworked their major. Now they want to change the name to really pick up more social and digital media in the major itself. They feel that the term mass communication isn't carrying what they need to do moving forward.
Very good.
Okay, Center Street, there hasn't been a lot of movement there since it's visible since the properties were raised in 2020. But we did a request for proposals with Al Dalia from campus, Andrew Sargent from Commerce, and the staff from Allegheny County Economic Development and myself. We did a request for proposal that was due in December, and we got 0 responses. So from that, there was a few firms that seemed to have the capacity to do a project and expressed interest, just not responding to that proposal in that format. So we're engaged with 3 different firms right now in interest. The housing study that's being completed by the I-68 Regional Partnership will be complete the end of this month, early next month. And once that's done, we'll share that with the 3 developers and then kind of talk with them and then make a recommendation to the mayor and council to negotiate with one of those developers. We don't want to string them all along consecutively, so we'll have to make a decision here early on. But they're all Maryland-based or tied to Maryland companies, so feeling optimistic that we'll have a plan in place in the next 6 to 9 months. The Roundabout, the city is under contract for 167 Bowery, so that last white house on Bowery Street before you get to the intersection, we are under contract on. The county is funding that acquisition and demolition for the city, which just saves us a lot of red tape of trying to do an acquisition with federal money. We'll probably close on that this summer, and design is to be 90% complete by late this fall, which we'll be able to bid it in the spring or early winter. So the construction happens in 2023 with the bulk of it happening during the summer when the intersection's closed. we have about $1 million shortfall for construction right now, but we're optimistic that that funding is going to appear in one way or another.
Wait, is that how that works?
Not usually. Not usually, but this time it does.
Big Easter basket.
It's raining money.
We can hope at least. In conjunction with that, that's when the two-way on Center Street would be, for the 2-block stretch would be accommodated. The city was working with State Highway on design of sidewalks along Braddock Road, and the university had been cooperating with that project. That would have gone from that intersection clear to Braddock Street, where the apartments are. And when COVID hit, State Highway stopped doing all project design, expense, everything. So we need to circle back and try and get that project going again. I think it's no less important now than it was, so, but that's all I have for now. Nick, do you have any questions? Sorry. Okay.
Thank you very much. Glad to talk about police activity. With regard to the student interactions, as you know, the enforcement interactions were primarily on the weekend nights, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday historically. That has still been going really well. We've had a really low level of activity, very low level of problems. Things were going better pre-COVID, but during COVID and up until now, the activity again is still very low. You're always going to have some issues. We have a few parties here and there, but what we have found is the students we interact with, even on enforcement type contacts, have been very polite and cooperative. I think we're getting a good quality of student, a good community. So we have kind of a combination now of still some cold weather and just a little bit post-COVID. So this will be the first spring since COVID came around that we'll get to see what the level of activity is and what types of issues there are. So I think it would be good now to try to continue focusing on education and prevention. The more we can get the word out about things like the social host ordinance, the more we can prevent problems. Because the parties tend to, they disturb the neighbors with the noise on that. That has gotten better. The volume of music has gotten better since the update to the noise ordinance and the social host ordinance. But what they also draw is they draw open containers, they draw littering, they draw public urination, and you get a lot of quality of life and community nuisance type issues. So I think it's a good time to promote education and keep us going on the good stretch we're on. Similar back at homecoming and Halloween, which are always historically pretty busy times. Both were really good. There was a lot of activity. But again, when we did have to write tickets for open containers or littering or public urination, everybody was very polite and cooperative. And I hadn't always seen that vibe, a decade or 15 years ago. So I think, again, we're getting a good quality of students and a good quality of folks in our community. So that's a good thing. And we always want to promote good, positive interactions outside of an enforcement context. I just talked in another meeting recently about something I've observed is that some students seem to kind of perceive that they're sort of always on campus or really isolated to the campus community, even when they're off campus, even when they're out in their neighborhoods. And several we've learned don't know of like the downtown businesses and those sorts of things. So I think it would be good to brainstorm ways to draw students out and make them feel a part of Frostburg while they're here. I mean, I think it's good just to make people feel welcome, feel part of the community, to promote our downtown. And I think even with regard to the police and quality of life issues, I think when you feel part of something, you treat it better. So that may have a preventative effect too. But all in all, things are going well. I'm hoping for the best. I'll be watching to see how things go with the nice weather and reduction of COVID restrictions. But so far, so good. And I'm looking forward to it staying that way. Glad to answer any questions or elaborate further.
Chief, can I suggest that you get together with Chief Smith, drop her a note, and
Yes,
I'll
sir.
be glad to put a note out the week when students come back after spring break, next week's spring break.
Yes,
The week
sir.
after, reminding them of all of these things, and I can throw out a couple of kudos that, you very much appreciate the collaboration, cooperation from this, and the civility of our students.
Wonderful.
And then,
Wonderful.
trying to reinforce that, but reminding them of all of this. I can put a note out. They typically read emails when it comes from me.
That's
And I have
great.
one a week from So it'll be 2 weeks from this Wednesday.
Okay.
If you get with Chief Smith
Yes, sir.
and just figure out what should be in that message,
Okay.
then we can do that.
Will do. Thank you,
Okay,
President
thank you.
Nowacek. I appreciate that sincerely.
It's a great plan, and just to kind of follow up, the Dean of Students, when we announced the new skateboarding policy, also did some reiteration of the unruly social gathering ordinance, and
Great,
posted a link to it, and talked about community
great.
behavior, so we'll continue to keep
That's
that
great.
message out there.
It reminds me, I haven't talked to Dr. Graham or Mr. Crow for a while, which is usually a good sign for conduct and behavioral issues too.
Yeah.
So far so good.
You know, the other thing too, you mentioned, and we couldn't do it this year because of the COVID things, because the mayor and I have talked about doing more in terms of downtown, you know, maybe in the fall. Really having some of it, again, we do the welcome back kind of thing, but doing more of that or something that could get students to see the businesses that are downtown. I don't know, maybe doing some sort of drawings or something. I know we do that thing for children's literature. If they go around and get enough stamps from a number of places, they could get entered into a drawing or something. Maybe there's some things we could do to encourage them to visit. You know, maybe one of the places stop at the police station here.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
I know you like giving tours.
Yes, I would love it. That would be wonderful.
He needs to get some work done too.
Just have to set a timer for how long I talk on the tour. I can make it a long tour. I had to learn that with the elementary school kids. Okay. Shorten it up.
Skateboarding.
So I provided you with a copy of our personal transportation device policy, which is part of our overall policy statements. It includes information about skateboards, bicycles, and other modes of personal transportation. Thanks to the city for having a model policy and helping to guide some of the language that's in our current policy, and thanks to SGA and Darius Brown in the last meeting in the fall for bringing this to our issue. So we're able to move this forward and do a policy modification, get it approved through our general counsel and the president, and was announced to the university community from the dean of students. And so in essence, this policy does talk about some prohibited behavior and those behaviors that are not necessarily, or those that are permitted and those that are prohibited. So students can now, as a mode of personal transportation, ride a skateboard on campus. The things that are prohibited they can't do is tricks, grinding, things like that would potentially destruct property and potentially create injuries to the persons using the device. So we're pleased with where the policy landed, and again, thanks to SGA and their commitment to students, and thanks for following a really good process to get this through, and again, thanks to the city for helping guide our process.
I did have some conversations via email with Darius regarding skateboard park feasibility too, and the history was the city used to have one, but it has to be staffed, and then not enough people came to pay for the staff, the whole thing fell apart. And knowing Frostburg's weather, knowing that the majority of the users aren't here during the best time to skateboard, it just doesn't seem feasible on the city. And that coupled with that, the city of Cumberland has a committee that's looking at doing a skate park in earnest, but they're estimating $600,000 or $800,000 to that skate park. So it's an extraordinary expense for a small percentage of the population that would use it. This is great. This is like this shows a result of the Town and Gown Committee.
Tangible outcome.
Beautify the Burg, I just have on there, they're working and getting projects together, so 2022 will be a normal Beautify the Burg year, the way it looks right
What date
now.
do we have from this? What date do you
It's the first Saturday in May, so,
know? First Saturday in May? Okay.
Yes.
May 6th or 7th, something like that, okay.
my mental calendar is not as good as yours, but yes.
Yeah, May 7th.
So, yeah,
Good.
lots of projects are coming forward, and I don't know if you're familiar with that, Lucas, but You are? Okay, all right. So, if anyone wants to volunteer to lead a crew or volunteer to be on a crew, they're always looking for additional help.
We're doing supervision again.
So,
We're the moral support.
That's
We
right.
drive around and say, hey, it looks really nice. We're moving on to the next place.
Here's a bigger brush.
That's right.
okay, so that is all I have, but wanted to open it for additional discussion.
I just wanted to say thank you to the city, because it's, when I have discussions with my colleagues from other institutions, this kind of relationship isn't the norm necessarily across the system. In that, I think we're really fortunate to have the ability to work well together. And this is really a college town in many ways, and I think, appreciate the students. We're seeing the change in behavior from what I understand it may have been a couple of decades ago, is very different, which is really nice. And, again, responsibility of being good citizens. But I'm always pleased when I talk with my fellow presidents that I can talk about the great working relationship we have here in Frostburg. It's not something that's found across the country or found even in some other institutions. So thank you. Really means a lot.
Brooks, do you have any questions? Or?
I do not. Just a clarification thing. You said that the policy for skateboarding on campus is like active currently. Okay.
Yeah, it should have been announced a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you recall getting an email, but I'll circle back with the students
I
just to make
probably
sure.
did. I just get a lot of emails.
Yeah, I think he was just overall, we did typically, towards the beginning of each semester, do an overall announcement of here's how you, making students aware of their code of conduct and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll follow up on that just to make sure that I'm pretty sure it went out.
Anybody else have anything? Okay. Very good. President, thanks, man.
Thank you.